what can we help you deal with right now that
What I'm centering on
problem that
right
we can
now,
solve?
poverty related, I think that people need to be leaning in and paying attention right now to this moratorium that has been extended concerning rent evictions, appreciating that it is only extended for a finite period for another, I guess, 3 months. And what they need to be leaning in on is the fact that this moratorium is intended to help many people of color. Disproportionately, as COVID impacted many people with respect to health challenges and job loss, it has impacted people when it comes to staying in their homes and being at risk of being addicted and being homeless. And so we've got this moratorium, but it's not for a long period of time. It may be challenged legally because the Supreme Court already held back in June that the federal government, that the executive branch did not have the authority to impose a moratorium and to extend it. And they said that the Congress should do it, but the Congress hasn't acted. So Biden, under a lot of pressure, did act. He got the CDC to extend it until October, but it's just until October. And there have already been lawsuits that have been filed challenging the extension. So I want people to pay attention to that and pay attention to the fact that there's some money out there right now to help if you are at risk of losing your home. If you're a renter and you're at risk of losing, there's $46 billion that was allocated as part of economic stimulus, and people have only taken advantage of $3 billion of that $46 billion. It's like one of those best kept secrets, right? And our people need to know that it's out there, and that if you've lost income, if your expenses are greater than you can pay right now because of COVID, and you can show the tie, you can get this money if you just take advantage of it. And a lot of the data is showing that a lot of us aren't even aware of it. So that's what I want people to know and be centered on. And
Absolutely.
this bigger dance that we got going on right now with the government around it and other things.
Oh yeah, that part. Yeah, but it's part of the American Rescue Plan Act, right? And it's
Right.
literally funds in there allocated, billions of dollars set aside for it. And I did a video on it to try to educate people, but I guess I do a better job putting that out there. But yeah, it's out there. We just gotta know. We gotta know how to access it. You're right.
It's out there, and people are about to get they're about to get bumped out of their homes. I mean, the minute that the moratorium expired in states and localities across this country, counties, the landlords started going and volunteer to evict people.
Wow.
I want to ask a question that may be sensitive, but for the last year, almost 18 months, there's kind of been this moratorium, right? And people who live someplace, even if not everybody lost their job during COVID. Most people kept their jobs. As a matter of fact, there are more jobs available now than not. And in addition to that, people were getting checks. Right. A lot of people were getting relief checks during COVID. A lot of people got their stimulus checks during COVID. To me, I just feel like part of it, poverty is not people. And I'm going to say this, Jennifer, save for the children who did not ask to come here, who are subject to their parents' choices. Some of these adults are not making good choices.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, now then it becomes dire straits and an emergency when you don't have to be Ray Charles to see that this is not going to last. You're not going to be able to live somewhere forever for free. My mother used to always, you ain't going to be able to live nowhere for free. So I had to pay rent when I stayed at home. You know what I'm saying? When I got back from college, and I did so gladly, right? But I feel like a lot of people are not having any kind of foresight and vision. And they got these stimulus checks, and now they got a child tax credit coming in every month for their children, and they're not applying it in a way. Now, I know it's very expensive to be poor. And there's a wonderful piece in Randall Robinson's The Debt, where he talks about the expensiveness of poverty, whether it's not having a washer and dryer and having to take a bus to go wash your clothes. You got to take a taxi sometimes to get your groceries, and it's expensive. But I also think there's some choices here that we aren't really talking about. And I feel like even not going after the money that's there. Like if you really about this life, the money is there to take care of the thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. No, Look, no pushback on me from me on that. I agree with you wholeheartedly that there are a lot of us out here who are making choices that are not well informed, and we're not seeking to find, to gain the information to make the most informed decisions. You and I have a mutual associate, Jacquette Timmons, who is a financial. She studied finance, was down on Wall Street, and has written books about financial management. She holds herself out, I love this, not as a financial planner, but a financial behavior, I think she calls it a financial behavioralist. And essentially, right, and she says, you don't manage your money, you manage your choices regarding money. And that's where people miss the mark. What are the choices and decisions that you're making in the immediate, and how will they impact you in the long term? This child tax credit, as an example, you got Democrats all over the country talking about how this is a game changer. And it's going to bring, like 40, 50% of people up out of poverty. 88 million people may come up out of poverty, right? Not really so much if you're not managing the money wisely. An additional, if you got 3 children and they're under the age of 5, that amounts to an additional $1,800 a year. That's not going to bring you up out of poverty, just in and of itself, getting the additional money. Now, if you maybe make some choices about how you use that money, that might help you, right? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, if you make choices to save that money because you were doing well, or you were getting by otherwise, that can help you. But if you just see another $1,800 in your pocket, and now it's time to go to Disney World, right? Go hang in Vegas. That's not going to lift you up. And so it's all about choices. And some of us choose to take advantage of all that the system has to offer to get ahead. Some of us choose to take advantage of just to kind of chill, and some of us don't take advantage at all.
So hold on. The Bible says there's always going to be poor. So,
but the Bible didn't mean it. Jesus didn't mean it that way.
How do you beat it?
That's that spin where people say, well, Jesus said the poor shall always be with us, so why do we need to do more? What Jesus was saying, what had happened was, what Jesus was saying was that people shall always be in need, and it is our responsibility to lift up and love and serve our brothers. There may always be somebody who's in need of something. He wasn't saying that we're going to have a perpetual, perennial, impoverished group, and we just need to accept that and deal with it. He was talking more about the responsibility of one neighbor to another.
I wonder about a couple of things, though, when it comes to poverty. Like, okay, we understand that there are certain people, undeniable, are in certain situations because of poor choices. But I wonder if that, to me, it seems like that's a minority of these people. And I think the vast majority, at least from what I've been able to ascertain, are in those situations because of structural inequities that we have, unfair wages, low and things of that nature. And then you have obviously increasing cost of living with wages not matching. So what are we doing as a society, and even from legislative standpoint, to make sure that people are able to just survive or even thrive or have access to upward mobility?
Drew, you're right on point. Just this week, we recognized I think it was just Tuesday, if I'm remembering correctly, that a Black woman in America, on average, would have had to have worked all of last year and then up until Tuesday to have earned the same amount of money that a white man earns. A Black woman earns 62 to 64 cents on the dollar on average as compared to a white man. The white woman is at about 79 cents. The point of that is simply that Black women on average are in lower wage, they are paid less wages, and then many of them are in lower wage jobs. And that comes down to job segregation, that often Black women are essentially marketed and steered towards lower paying jobs, right? We're talking about jobs in retail, hospitality, childcare, early childhood education in the main. And what happens is that you take that coupled with you take the job segregation, the low wages, And then you couple that with the fact that the Black woman in at least 60% of households is the only breadwinner, right? Not just, the primary, but the only breadwinner, right? In 80%, she is one of the primary breadwinners in 80% of households, but in 60%, she's the only breadwinner. So you take that with her lower wages, and now she's raising kids. Our children are living in poverty. 1 in 4 Black children living in poverty compared to less than 1 in 10 white children. So the point that I'm making with all of this is that it is structural. It dates back to how we value the work in this nation of certain people, and then how we steer certain people in certain communities into certain low-wage jobs. It's structural in nature. And if we don't value certain roles and pay them fairly, then people aren't going to get ahead. So we need to be centered and focused on fair pay, equity in pay, and paying self-sufficient, sustainable wages. In this nation, we don't do that. And Karen's heard me talk about this before. The government discounts what it takes to live in America with this antiquated, dated federal poverty level that says if you're a family of 4 making anything above $26,000, you're technically not poor. They do that so that they can then suppress the wages, because $15 an hour equates to $30,000 a year. So if somebody's making $15 an hour, and that's not even the federal wage, but if 2 people in a household, $7.25 an hour is the federal minimum wage. You got 2 people in the household, then together they'd be making about $30,000 a year. That's above what the federal government decides what poverty looks like. You do that, you get to keep suppressing wages because people are above that amount. And then you don't have to pay what you need to in terms of income supports. You don't have to raise wages, and you have this continual, perpetual lower class.
Wow, and see, that's the thing, man. Another thing about it is you see how it's almost cyclical too, because if you have poverty, we also understand that in poverty is what is immediately affixed to things like crime and things of that nature. So if you are, it's poverty, it's not race, it's not background, it's literally poverty that causes that environment. If you live in an area where maybe there are acts of violence or crime in that way, that traumatizes children. These same children then have to go to school and try to learn with that trauma that they actually were suffering and being exposed to. We have a Surgeon General out here in California. Her name is Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris. She actually specializes in childhood trauma, and she actually highlighted these about like over a decade ago, and just her work is amazing. But she was understanding that, especially Black children, kids like us, in these classrooms, they're trying to learn, but you can't because I'm traumatized. I'm 8 years old and I've seen things. And then, you're not able to learn, you're not able to keep up with things, and next thing you know, less your chance to go to college, less your chance to get those higher paying jobs, and it's cyclical and it keeps going and going. And so, yeah, it's interesting.
They've done some research, you're spot on, and they have now termed it adverse childhood experiences. Trauma associated with poverty, trauma associated with having a family member, a father or mother who's been imprisoned, trauma associated with, perhaps having witnessed domestic violence, mental health, and how all of these things build. And these are stressors that are in our Black and brown communities. And as you said, Drew, some of it is choices, yes, Karen, but a lot of it is structural racism that has undergirded all this, and we're living in it, and then it gets manifested. One of the reasons why we got so many people struggling, Black and brown people right now through COVID and having these problems around, being evicted from their homes and the like, is because of these low wages that did not allow people to save for a rainy day. So if you've got low wages, we've got Black women in America. And Karen, this is where some people are making bad choices. Some people are trying to get ahead and they can't. We have Black women in America who've earned master's degrees, who are being paid less than white men with just high school diplomas. We've got Black women working 2 and 3 jobs in social work, in childcare, as home health aides and the like. And they are eligible for the same benefits of the people that they're caring for because the government has suppressed their wages. So these are people trying to get ahead.
As you're talking, though, I also know a lot of us don't value ourselves enough to demand the things that we need to have, right? So it's also cultural, but you know, we don't have the resources, the human capital around us to tell us, you know, if you're going into, you know, how folk go to, you went to a very prestigious school, and in that community there's an expectation when you go to these schools that this is what you, and you talk, right? So, you know, I'm going to get out of school and make this salary because that's the going rate. And I feel like we don't share enough, and then we don't push one another enough to do more. And I feel like, you know, the role here on this show is to not provide any excuses, because I think also people, you know, want, well, the reason is racism. Yeah, there's racism. And yet in 1912 there was a man called Robert Church Sr. who was able to fund a lot of things, one generation out of enslavement, and Mary Ellen Pleasant. I mean, you know, those are anecdotal, but there were a lot of people who figured it out right out of bondage. We are not in bondage right now. So I think that there's resources, the government. Yeah, I mean, the New Deal sucked for us, but now those same programs are there, right? And we just talked about the house. There's housing money right now in every municipality that people are not applying for.
Right, right.
The
You
people,
know, I think I agree with you. I agree with you, but I think that this is where critical race theory comes in. And I think it's,
lawyer, hold on.
and I think this is where, and I believe this is where critical race theory comes in. And it is what is making it, it's threatening to powers that be to teach critical race theory, because what critical race theory helps people to appreciate, Black persons to appreciate, is that, just, you know, going back to what Drew was saying a few minutes ago, so much of what we've experienced as people is structural. It's like structurally based. And once you begin to appreciate, critical race theory is an empowering tool. That's what it is. You know, yes, hands down, it's an empowering tool. Once I understand that racism in America is more than a one-to-one relationship, it's more than my neighbor doesn't like me and my family because we're Black and is biased, you know, and bigoted because we're Black. No, it's a system that was constructed beginning with the founding of this society and the founding of America with the United States Constitution that said that Blacks were 3/5 of a person. Once I understand that, and I understand that the laws that, you know, emanated from the United States Constitution, because essentially our government is nothing but, our society is nothing but laws, policies, and programs that emanate from this, you know, this United States Constitution. Whether you're talking about a state constitution or a local city charter, it all began with the United States Constitution. So if I begin to appreciate that society was structured in a way to discount me and essentially count me out, then I begin to understand it's not that I'm less capable. It's not that I'm less worthy. It's not just that it's like, you know, like it's the neighbor over here who doesn't like me. It's the system. It's designed to work against me. Once I understand that, it's not that I get to sit back and go, oh, well, I don't have a chance because the system is stacked against me. No, rather I say, oh, it's not about that I'm less than or I'm not capable. It's I've got to fight this system and I've got to go harder to overcome it, to confront it and overtake it. And so that's why I call it an empowering tool. Once I understand what has happened here, then I'm better positioned to do something about it. My daddy used to say all the time, gain knowledge, gain power. Once you understand what you're dealing with, and what a white America wants you to do is to continue to believe that the reason you can't get ahead is because you're less than. You're not as intelligent, you're not as capable. No, this system is structured in such a way for you not to. Not an excuse not to do what you need to do. But once you know what you're dealing with, then you can deal better.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens. I've like a billion other stories that I wanted to talk with you about, but before I let you go, there was a race in Ohio on Tuesday that Chantel Brown won, that led the congressional district. But that race was not for me about the congressional seat as much as it was this battle line that's drawn between quote unquote progressives and quote unquote establishment Democrats, which I don't want to lean into at all, because I think again these are paper balloons that people are trying to figure out how to. So what are your thoughts on that? You first, Jennifer.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. And, I saw it play out in Ohio, and then we've got a similar narrative that's going on here where I am in New York City around our Democrat nominee for mayor, Eric Adams, where people are saying that, Eric Adams, like Chantal, got in because it's a pushback on the progressive. I'm not so sure. I think people today are voting for a variety of reasons. I think people are voting a lot of demographic politics. I think I think you got a lot of progressive, dare I say, white liberals or white liberals in general, trying to show that they're not, that they're not racist and that they will put certain people into office. I don't think we've got a referendum there or in New York, in Ohio or in New York, on progressive politics and a pushback. I just don't think it's that simple. And I think we're gonna have to wait and see.
Well, I'll say this. I think after the other night, I think Jadakiss need to run for mayor of New York. But just that versus. But no, honestly and truth. You know how to slip it in there. No, I think that also I think that the thing that's really hurting politics and that line that demarcates between quote unquote progressive and quote unquote establishment, which is amazing because the establishment of America is white supremacy, not black people. So I don't know how we got thrown to that. But in any event, I think that it's this absolutism that is overtaking everything. And I think maybe a lot of that has to do with the age of social media. And it's like, well, if it's all of this or it's all of that, there's no nuance. There's no, well, let's see, okay, maybe I disagree on some of your views, but we agree mostly on these points. Let's find a way to work together. No, we want all or nothing. There was an opinion article that came out that said, usually when you put up and you say all or nothing, you might end up, most of the time, walking away with nothing. And so, I think that people, this idea that incremental change is somehow evil and some sort of, trope to hurt you and keep you down. I think that's wrong. All of our changes have always been incremental, step by step. Yeah, so I think that that's really what I would love to see us grow out of. I hope it's a temporary trend, and I hope that we get to a point where we say, hey, look, I think 50 Cent, also another dude from New York, he said, slow dough is better than no dough. So I think that, let's move forward, even if it's a couple of inches. I just quoted 50 Cent in the policy discussion. That's pretty dope. But yeah.
I think at some point, Carol, we should talk about whether or not, with all that we're seeing in Washington, D.C. and around the country these days, I'm kind of, playing with the question of whether our democracy is at risk or is it operating just as it was intended to do?
I think it's at risk. I don't think our democracy, the framers of this Constitution, imagine that you, me, and Drew would be in a room with the power that we all have and the agency and the ability to be able to move as we do, and so many other. I don't think they ever envisioned that. So this is not how, and having so much influence on what ends up happening in this country. I think it is crumbling, and I think the fear of losing that power is what is really creating the fissures that we're seeing, because people don't want to see progress happen, true progressive progress, which is all of us participating in this thing called democracy. We'll see. I don't have a lot of faith that this country is going to last much longer as it's currently constructed, but that may be a good thing. The end of the world doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Time to subvert the world order.
Come on. Oh, Jennifer Jones Austin.